and welcome! I'm Jade, and today I'm going to be doing the Mid Year Freakout Tag. It just felt good to do a traditional intro because this is such a classic tag. It's one of the most popular, it's one of the only tags I still see being done regularly, and it's one that really does keep me on track. I do enjoy it. It's a good tag. I enjoy watching it. Let's get into it because I have a list of answers that I have properly prepared and I am bound to go off script. The first question is, what is the best book you have read so far in 2024? I have two answers for this, and that is a subjective and an objective answer. These two books have been battling it out a lot this year, so I'm just going to explain a little bit of why these books keep cropping up to the top. First off, I have Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is the third in the Locked Tomb trilogy, the first being Gideon and the second being Harrow. If you've never heard of those, I highly recommend you look into them, and you must be new to my channel. Welcome. Book 3 follows Nona, and I really can't say too much because not only would it be spoilery, it would be confusing. It's just to say that I had just so much fun reading this. I'm so invested in being confused by this point that I'm along for the ride. I love it, I enjoy it, and the rereadability and finding new things each time is just there. I've already flipped back through to the beginning of Nona and looked for hints and clues in the things I found out, and it's just so phenomenal to read. But I don't think it's for everybody, and it's really hard for me to ever pitch these books. This is subjectively the best book I have read this year, but it also is not user-friendly, so that is why I objectively also want to bring up Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Piranesi was such a perfect book. It was like the quintessential 5-star. It had the quirk and whimsy that I really look for in books, but it also had a really strong plot line that you could follow. And even though I sometimes didn't know what was going on, there was still a lot of clarity around descriptions and moments that gave me hints and foreshadowing, so I knew it was going to be important or if it was going to lead to a big reveal later. So I felt like this was a user-friendly play with foreshadowing and rereadability, and it was just very fun to read, very enjoyable. And Piranesi is a standalone novel, so I also think it's just a very strong, sturdy book that I could definitely reread and enjoy, and it's objectively the best book I read this year. Second is the best sequel I have read this year. We are going once again head to head. My answer does have to be Nona the Ninth, because this is the third in the Locked Tomb trilogy, as I said, and I've been following these characters for so long, and I cannot believe the momentum that Tamsin Muir has been able to create with each of these sequels, where I always think the last book is my favorite until I reach the next and I realize she's somehow upped her game. Nona is fantastic. It builds on the other books, and I can't imagine not giving this slot to Nona. But a contender that I think should be mentioned, I'm 75% of the way through Emily Wilde's Maps to the Otherworld, and I'm loving it so much. I can see me at the end of the year possibly naming this the winner, or at least it being a close second. It's just a fantastic follow-up to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which is a cozy fantasy following a very no-nonsense main character as she goes and researches fairies. I love this setup. I love having a logical take on a fantastical idea because it really roots it in our world and makes it feel possible. But I haven't finished it yet, so she can't take the first prize yet. Third is a new release you haven't read but want to. There's lots and lots and lots, but to condense it down to something manageable for a video I'd like to put out tomorrow and edit today, I have 3 books that really fit this. They're so different genre-wise that I feel like they can't really be compared. There's not a first, second, or third. But the one that I will mention first is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. Riley Sager is one of those authors that has never made it to my favorites, but I'm always interested to see what's going to be put out next. Other people's anticipation and love for it does make me excited for it too. I also heard that Riley Sager is writing from a male perspective, which might better suit his writing. Yeah, I want to give this a try, but I believe it takes place in a small, quiet town where a boy and his friend go to sleep in a tent on a little camp out in their backyard, and when the main character wakes up in the morning, his friend is gone and has just completely disappeared. The mystery remains unresolved until he reluctantly returns home home in order to solve the case or somehow gets wrapped up in it. I have been really enjoying like suspense, thriller, and horror more lately, and I feel like these are the types of stories I'm really liking, where there's a mystery to solve, but not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a murder, it can be ambiguous and we're just trying to find out what happened, and having a build in suspense, just anticipation. Those are the books I've been really enjoying outside of fantasy, and I would like to continue that. They're kind of fast-paced reads for me, so if I'm in a slump, this is kind of the route I've been going, and it's been going well. On the opposing side of this, we have a gigantic epic fantasy, When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This book is a whopping large book. I've seen pictures of it online, and I just cannot actually imagine holding it in my hand and it fitting. So I am a little nervous, but greatly wanting to pick this book up. It sounds very whimsical and has been just getting a lot of hype around it. The cover is gorgeous, and I did pick it up on audiobook before canceling my Audible subscription. I feel very inclined to read it, and I feel like Audibly is probably the way to do it. I've talked about this book previously. It does involve dragons, but they disappear and the people left in this world are left to mourn them, and then it seems like they then come back. But again, I don't know much more. I'm kind of going in with a bit of nothing. Blurb sounds very whimsical and just kind of like vague, and I'm just hoping that this book lives up to the expectations I have for it, because they're pretty darn high. Last but certainly not least is The Forbidden Game by Madison Fox. This is the sequel to Good Game, which is a spicy romance book, which is not my typical read, but I have so much fun with these books. They have like the gamer trope where the gamers are wearing masks and the characters are interacting, not knowing they're interacting with each other because of the whole mask thing. The first book was incredibly spicy. The second book is said to be more so, and the third book is coming out, which is following my favorite character from the first book. They are all interconnected standalones. I think that you should probably read them in order because of the reoccurring characters. The first one was so much fun. Madison is my dear friend, and I'm very excited to pick up another one of her books, and I'm just incredibly proud of her. Definitely a new release that I'd like to get to. Question 4. This is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This is hard because there's so many books that I want to come out at the second half of this year, but I don't have the same sort of safety and guarantee. That's Nevermore by Jessica Townsend's next book. That's the Burning series by Evan Winter, which again was delayed. So I have fears. I have hopes and I have fears, and I don't want to list these because I've embarrassed myself before when they've been delayed. So I'm going to go ahead and swerve over to books that have release dates that I'm really anticipating. The first being Children of Anguish and Anarchy. I thought that this book had already come out and I was behind. I did not realize book 3 in the Children of Blood and Bone series had not come out by Tomi Adeyemi. I really enjoyed this series, and then I thought I fell off the charts, but I didn't realize that there had been delays, that the book is finally coming out this month, or the month that I'm filming, which is June 25th. So this has been a huge surprise for me, but the cover reveal definitely did it for me, and I have so much nostalgia for this series, but I am going to be reading this book, and I would love if I could read it this year, which would require rereads, but that's not out of the question. The next is Lady Macbeth. This is by Ava Reid. Ava Reid is a new favorite author of mine that I've been really enjoying. This is her newest release coming out August 6th, and it is a Lady Macbeth retelling, and I just feel like Ava Reid can do this. This seemed so up her alley and so right. When I was reading about it, I was like, this is it. This is going to kill it. I'm ready for it. It sounds cool. It sounds great. I really love Ava Reid's writing, and I love the tone in which she angrily moves forward through her themes. Like, she just is a powerhouse, and I'm really, really excited for anything she's putting out. And I love the amount of books she's put out in the last few years. And then finally, So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison is coming out September 10th, and I'm very excited for this book because I really liked Rachel Harrison's other book. I liked it so much that I bought a physical copy of Such Sharp Teeth, and this is a werewolf book where a woman, this is not a spoiler, is bit by a werewolf, turns into a werewolf, and really overall the plot is just the fact that she has to go about her normal life, has the same problems she had before she was a werewolf. There's definitely a metaphor here with dealing with periods and like so many other things. And it was so subtle. I mean, it was camp, but it was subtle. It had really powerful messages in a really fun setting that just came off as camp, but very, very deep. Deep camp? I don't know. And the fact that she has another book that I'm pretty sure is centered around vampires seems like the perfect follow-up. As far as this question goes, for anticipated new releases, it's gonna have to go to So Thirsty. Oh, okay, I'm so sorry. This is dumb. I did a dumb. There is definitely one more book I am anticipating coming out this year. And if you know it, you know it. If you don't, I did write my own book and it comes out on the autumn equinox, September 20th of this year. Yeah, I'm highly anticipating. I'm almost vomiting with anticipation because this is my debut release. This book is going to enter the world and anyone will be able to read it. I won't be able to control it anymore. I won't be able to read beta reader thoughts or anything like that. It'll just be out in the world. And I am anticipating that. This is very exciting. If you haven't heard of The Solstice Court, it is my cozy political fantasy following rival kingdoms, complex family dynamics, swords and sorcery, and a dollop of romance set in a queer normative world. If it sounds great to you, I have other videos on it. I will have a master video coming out that has a lot more details and information, but yeah, this is a book I'm definitely anticipating. I can't believe I got through 3 books before remembering that I am debuting a novel this year. Am I the worst booktuber ever, or would that be the worst author tuber ever? I really can't decide. I don't know what I am, but I know I'm the worst at something here. Number 5, biggest disappointment. This is a recent read for me, and a vlog will be coming out where I talk about it more in detail, so I will kind of save a little bit of the anticipation for that. But I did recently pick up Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner, and while I did enjoy this book, it does, in my opinion, suffer from middle book syndrome. There were aspects I liked about this, but the pacing did feel a little bit off. It is the sequel to God Killer, which was, I think, my best book of last year, if not one of the high contenders, and so that did make this book more of a disappointment. I was expecting more from it, and the things I really liked and got from it took a while to get there and didn't feel like enough. I do want to continue this series. I think that there are plenty of series out there where people will say that it takes like 3, 4, or 5 books to get into a series, and they still go through all 7 or 12 of them. You know who you are if you read those big fantasy books and then you're telling us all it doesn't get good until book 4. In this case, God Killer was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of different representation. It was also set in a queer normative world. It had disability rep. There was an epic battle. This book, it felt like set up for the 3rd, which I think is going to be great. As of right now, this is the most disappointing book I read because I wanted it to be as good as God Killer, and that's just not what I got. Sequels are hard, man. I really do feel you, Hannah. Number 6 is Biggest Surprise, and this was a very nice surprise. This was the first book I read this year. It was when I wasn't really expecting to pick up a book and enjoy it. I was just reading a book because I needed to get going, I guess. I don't know. And so I picked up Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, and I freaking loved this book. I didn't think a thing of it when I picked it up. It was on Libby and it was open. So I clicked it and I clicked play and I listened to this book and I was enthralled. This follows a mother who watches her son murder someone before her very eyes and then is clicked back in time where she must solve the reason as to not who murdered, but why he murdered. Why her son murdered somebody. It like broke me a little bit. This book was just so good and so well written and kept me listening, and I just wasn't expecting it, and I did give it 5 stars because it was just so good. It was only after I started looking for it that I started seeing it pop up on channels I really enjoy, and I didn't even realize I was just kind of bypassing and not paying attention to it. I just noticed and recognized the title, and then I found out like a lot of people really love this book. So if it wasn't on your radar, because this is not your typical read, it wasn't on mine either. It's not my typical read, and I really liked it. I think that you might enjoy it too. It was hard-hitting, had good twists. It also was fun, somehow. I'm gonna leave it at that. It was a very pleasant surprise. Number 7, favorite new author that's debut or new to you. And I have, again, I'm so sorry, there are 2. It's just narrowing it down to 1. I mean, have you ever been plagued with someone asking you what your favorite book is? And have you ever just been able to give one answer without any caveats or nuance? It's impossible. I'm trying. 2 new to me authors. First, I have to say that I had a very strong inclination that Tamsin Muir was going to be a new favorite author. When I read this book, I almost single-handedly was like, yes, but I had only read one of her books. She had so much time to dismantle any opinion I had of her. And then she She gaslit me for over 500 pages and I had the best time of my life. She completely rocked my world. I fell in love with Harrow. I didn't know what my life had become, but I knew that Tamsin Muir had done something to me. But 2 books in the same series is that really favorite author status? Does that get you there? I don't know, because when I really love a book, even if the series isn't complete, I can't help but say it's a favorite. And when I read Nona, it became so solid for me that I was a Tamsin Muir stan. I love Tamsin Muir and I think that she is so creative and intelligent. She has so much detail, intricacy in her writing, and she's perfect. And I'm sure flawed. That's what makes her even more perfect. She is a favorite of mine now. Something clicked with me in Nona where it's just inarguable. She will never be dismantled. Tamsin Muir, definitely this year became a favorite. Editing Jade here. I was on such a tangent about Tamsin Muir that I did forget to mention the second author, so I would say that I just have one, but the author, in case you're a completionist, the author I was going to mention was Heather Fawcett, because I am really enjoying Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies book 2, and I see potential in picking up anything she writes because I just really love the world, and I thought that that was really wholesome and sweet and I wanted to talk about it, and then I kind of lusted after Tamsin Muir for like 15 minutes, so I'm gonna try and cut that down a little bit, but also that was the second author. Newest fictional crush. I also saw Meg from Meg with Books put relationship, like fictional relationship for those who are not crushing hard. So if you are wanting to do this tag and you just want to avoid this question at all costs, that is a really good alternative. I think I'm always kind of crushing on the characters in the Locked Tomb series. In Nona, that didn't feel quite right. Like, it wasn't the same. I didn't feel crushed. I felt protective and adoration and love towards Nona, but it was very much so more platonic. And that is a complicated statement all in itself, but yeah, so I don't think I was crushing on Nona, and this is the only book of the Locked Tomb series I've read this year, so I'm trying to play it fair. The last character, I don't want to make anything too spoilery, the last character to arrive in this book at the dead end, like there's no more pages left, there's no more words. The last person shown, I think I have a crush on. I think I'm a little obsessed with them, and I just can't get into that right now because I don't want to spoil anything for you if these are books you are picking up or haven't gotten to and want to. I'm just gonna say last book, last character, last breath. I think I would maybe die for. And I only knew them for about 3 pages, sort of. That gets complicated too. I need to not talk about this anymore. White Horse Black Knights did have like a fun couple, and it's like a romantasy. I don't know, I don't think I've really like been drawn to romantasy since it's become super popular, but I picked this up, it was on Libby, and I was just really enjoying my time. I thought it was fun, I thought it was problematic in ways that were like totally fine. I don't know how to explain that. You know how there's problematic and then there's problematic? This was just problematic where I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are so toxic and terrible for each other, but I also kind of love you guys together. I felt good. It follows a girl who's being sold as a bride to a fellow kingdom and the bodyguard that is going to be taking her to that kingdom and the king he serves. Already, oh my gosh, so many flags. Whole other dynamic of this, she does have to ride a horse all the way to this neighboring kingdom naked. I know, I get it. Again, remember, problematic, problematic. I think Evie Marceau did a very good job of setting up characters and not making it like sleazy or cheesy. Instead, really has a lot of subverted tropes, and I thought that she just managed all of these things really well to just create like fun, good spice. There was a lot of good pining, there was a lot of buildup. You really do feel frustration and anger between these two characters, but you also are rooting for them. I just enjoyed myself. Number 9, newest favorite character. Piranesi is a sweet dollop of curiosity and absolute innocence. I loved Piranesi, and I just wanted to protect him at all costs. I felt so much stress. I have an entire vlog dedicated to me reading Piranesi and the stress I felt for Piranesi. I will link that down below and up above if you're interested. I don't give spoilers, but I did love and adore Piranesi, and for the same reasons, Nona as well. Nona and Piranesi, I feel like would be friends for life. I want to be friends with them. I love characters I can not just root for, but I want to hold and protect. And it just felt like putting the cinnamon roll in lead stage and just seeing what they would do. That's a pretty easy one, as long as you don't make me choose. Piranesi and Nona the Ninth are going to be just dueling it out for the rest of this video, and I just need you to not make me choose. Books that made you cry. I did cry during Nona the Ninth, and I did cry during Wrong Place, Wrong Time. I'm not a big crier. When I say cry, I mean like my eyes welled up, I teared up, and I like gasped and withheld a sob, if that makes sense. I felt a strong welling of the feelings. That happened with both Nona and Wrong Place, Wrong Time. Oh, and I threw Hail Mary across the room. If you've read Hail Mary, you understand exactly the point, but I just went nope and tossed it. Just tossed it across the room, picked it back up, continued reading, didn't cry, but did flail. Oh, question 11, book that made you happy. All of these books, I mean, reading makes me happy. Let's get a little less vague here. You know what? I read a comfort read. After I finished Wrong Place, Wrong Time, I was feeling a bit of a reading slump, so I did reread Song of the Lioness Quartet, Alana the First Adventure by Tamara Pierce. These are my comfort reads. These are the books I owned when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and I have periodically read them throughout my life in different points where I've needed comfort, and I did need comfort at the beginning of this year, so I comforted myself and I felt really happy and really good reading these books. I also just love how pocket-sized they are. That also makes me happy. Lots of joy to be had here. If you haven't read this series, it's pretty beloved and I think it holds up. I'm also currently reading Emily Wilde's Maps to the Other World. Like, it's making me happy. I really enjoy it. I think it's just as good as the first one, and it's building off of the first one, which makes it kind of better. I love Wendell. I love Emily. I love their dynamic. I love the explorations that they're going on. I like where the story's going. It feels high and low stakes at the same time, making it incredibly cozy, and that's happy for me. Number 12, most beautiful book you've bought this year. Now listen, I really thought about this. First, I want to say that I haven't bought a lot of books this year. I have a very small budget for books. They can just be incredibly expensive, and it has to be a book I've already read or incredibly beautiful for me to buy it, and that just hasn't happened very much this year. So there's not much competition. I would say, however, a book I bought this year, I cannot top. There is no cover, to me personally, that could ever beat out this cover. Are you tired of me holding up this book yet? I feel a little bit tired telling you. This is the most beautiful cover I have ever bought, and I did buy it for the author discount through Ingram Spark because I needed to make sure that the cover was as beautiful as I wanted it to be, and it is. It is everything I've ever wanted in a cover. This has so much personal feelings behind it, but I mean, objectively, I don't think that objectively anyone could argue with this. It is the most beautiful book I've bought this year. Come on, this is one of my most recent purchases. This is not a hard campaign. This is an easy win, and I'm gonna take the easy wins. I did pick up When the Moon Hatched this year as an audiobook, as I said earlier. I mean, that is a gorgeous cover. It doesn't have the sentimentality as my book, but like, this is such a pretty cover. I would love to own this physically. If I owned this physically, it would be a competitor. It wouldn't win because I'm in love with my cover, and I can't really compare them because I just have so much sentimentality. In the alternate universe where I didn't write a book, this would win. Question 13, and I think the last question. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I did make a 24 and 24 video. Several of them I have already read. I have tried to make them a priority, but books that I have not read yet that are still on my want to read list is Monstrilio, Tempest and Tea, and a book I own physically, which is Study and Drowning, also by Ava Reed. These are beautiful sprayed edges. It didn't come out this year. It's not a competitor. I almost picked it up for a vlog recently, but it got beat out by cozy queer normative stuff, so that happened. And then a book that was not on my radar before, but definitely is on my radar now, is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. Rachel at Reading Fairy, who I will have linked down below, is currently reading The Familiar, and I have been sold. Like, everything she said about it seems up my alley, really fun, really interesting, and I do love Leigh Bardugo. It was just a book that just hadn't grasped my attention yet. Everything Rachel Rachel has said about this book has made me want to read it. Again, Rachel's channel is linked down below, and I think she would do a better job since she's actually reading it, but the synopsis for the familiar says, in a shabby house on a shabby street in the new capital of Madrid, Luisa uses scraps of magic to get through her days of endless toil as a scullion. But when her scheming mistress discovers the lump of servant cowering in a kitchen is actually hiding a talent for little miracles, she demands Luisa use those gifts to better the family's social position. What begins as simple amusement for the bored nobility takes a perilous turn when Luisa garners the notice of Antonio, the disgraced secretary to Spain's king. I don't know, it didn't totally grasp me, but Rachel's got me on board. But it does kind of remind me, and the way that Rachel's been describing it reminds me of The Beautiful Ones by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and I read that book last year and really enjoyed it. It felt like just like a flash in the pan of something really good and really great, and then boom, it was over. I am having FOMO, and that book has entered the chat as far as me wanting to read it this year. But I think, unless I forgot a question, that's it. We have reached the end of the Mid-Year Freakout Tag. God, I hope this wasn't terribly long. I'm looking at the camera lens now, and it looks like it's at least 45 minutes. I hope that's mostly mistakes. I hope I can get this down to at least half that. If you have gotten to the end of this video, I would love to know your answer for one of these questions. And if you don't want to write anything out that long, you can go ahead and leave a skull emoji for my dear Nona the Ninth, because she really did take quite a few awards home today. Whether you do or not, I hope you're enjoying the sun or more stars wherever you are. And until next time, bye!